Okay, I am back with another political talk video. I'm going to keep the introduction on this one also short because I have to give some backstory for this video. And this first thing I'm going to talk about might seem a little odd, but I'll tie it back into what the main focus of this video is in a minute. So, I'm one of those people that do believe people's opinions, whether they be political, religious, or in terms of things like sexual orientation, or just anything, can change with time if they become more educated on the subject and are willing to be open-minded. There are plenty of people who think they're right, or they don't want to accept they are wrong, and they continue to believe something that because they don't want to feel like they made the mistake in believing in the first place. But I'm one of those people that is open-minded and willing to learn new things and listen to other people's opinions. And the reason why I say this is, if you go back far enough on YouTube, you'll probably find in some comment section of some video, or maybe if you were to dig up some old research or history paper I wrote for high school or college, you'll probably find one of me defending the Electoral College. But over time, I have come to realize that the United States needs to abolish the Electoral College. And like I said when I started this video, I am one of those people that, for the longest time, did try to believe the Electoral College was a good system to have, and I would go out of my way to try and defend it. But over time, I've come to realize, no, there's no reason for us to continue to have the Electoral College. And part of the reason why I'm talking about this is because of the upcoming presidential election, but I'll get back to that in a minute. So, quick backstory. So, when the country was first founded, the founding fathers were worried about mob rule, so they didn't want to have a system where people who weren't necessarily educated on the politicians to elect some crazy politician that could completely dismantle the government and do whatever they want, which is ironic given what we have now, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. So they set up the Electoral College, which is based on our form of government we have now, the bicameral legislative branch. Basically, the way it works is the Electoral College is based on how we have our Congress. Every state in the United States is guaranteed 2 senators, so they're automatically guaranteed 2 votes, and every state has members of the House, proportioned based on the population. And since the 50s, we've had the number set at 538. So 2 senators from 50 states, that's 100, 435 members of the House, proportioned amongst 50 states, and while Washington, D.C. is not a state, they get 3 electoral votes. So that's how it works. We have had, again, since the 1950s, 538 electoral votes. But even before the 1950s, the Electoral College was a flawed system, because it essentially gave a little bit of extra power to smaller states by taking away some power from larger states. Because if we base the Electoral College solely on, say, proportioning the population, bigger states, like my state of Texas, would probably have 3 or 4 more votes, and then smaller states like Wyoming, Vermont, the Dakotas, would each only have basically 1 vote. So that was part of the reason for the Electoral College, was to, in a sense, give a little more power to some of the smaller states. So right off the bat, the Electoral College is already a bit of a skewed system, because it helps out smaller states. And for the longest time, I defended that, thinking, well, I mean, smaller states should deserve a little bit more of a say, but again, I've come to realize, no, we should proportion the say, because it should just be 1 person, 1 vote. The Electoral College essentially disenfranchises votes because of the whole idea of swing states. Now, if you remember the map video I did a week or so ago, I had said the first map I did, about half the states, it was too early to know for sure which way they would go without knowing the nominees. Then the updated map, I said there were a handful of states that were basically swing states that basically I think might go one way or the other. But in any given election, really only about a dozen states really matter because of the Electoral College. A good 15 to 20 states are going to go Democrat no matter what. At least in my lifetime, that's usually how it's been. A good 15 to 20 states are going to go Republican no matter what. So the 2 nominees only really fight over about a dozen states. So again, that's another problem with the Electoral College. People say, oh, well, no, the Electoral College makes it so that all these states it basically makes them more competitive. And but that's just it. It's more competitive because it's only for certain states. It's not more competitive for every state. A Democrat hasn't won Wyoming in decades. A Republican hasn't won, say, California in decades. So, of course they're not going to campaign in those states. If it was one person, one vote, then yeah, every state would be competitive. Because if, say, a Democrat went to a normally red state and they did a few rallies there, it might swing some people to vote for them. But because of the Electoral College, they never really do that because there's no need to do that. The state's going to be red no matter what. And this goes into what I was going to, part of what I was bringing up with this video. My opinions about the Electoral College have slowly changed over time. Originally, I didn't want to necessarily get rid of the Electoral College because my mindset was, well, it's our system of government. We've always had it. Why get rid of it if it works? But here's the thing. The Electoral College doesn't work. And this is basically the main argument, at least in my opinion, why we should get rid of the Electoral College. Out of roughly 60 presidential elections, I think it was like 57 or 56, I can't remember the exact number, 5 times in U.S. history, the popular vote candidate did not win the Electoral College. And that kind of raises the question then, why do we have a system where the person who gets the majority, or at the very least a plurality of the votes, does not become our leader? But I also realized, after the election of 2016, the Electoral College we do have, as Trump would say, a rigged system. But it's rigged in favor of Republicans. All 5 times the Electoral College candidate won, despite not winning the popular vote, they were Republican. Jackson lost to John Quincy Adams in 1824. Or was it 1828? I can't remember. It was one of those two. Samuel Tilden lost to Rutherford B. Hayes in 1876. Grover Cleveland lost his re-election to Benjamin Harrison in 1888. Al Gore lost to George W. Bush in 2000. And of course, as I just said, Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump in 2016. So all 5 times, the Democrat won the popular vote, but the Republican won the Electoral College. Although, in 2000, because they stopped counting the votes early, Gore actually did win Florida, but unfortunately, it was basically, the Supreme Court said, no, when the votes were basically said the election's over, Bush had the lead. But yeah, and you can make the argument that, okay, the only reason why I want to abolish the Electoral College is because I'm a Democrat, and the Electoral College seems to hurt Democrats. Fine, but if you're going to make that argument, then aren't you a Republican saying you want to defend the Electoral College because you're a Republican and helps your candidates? And this leads to my last point of basically going back to my whole argument my whole point at the beginning about opinions changing with time. For a long time, I tried to make the argument, instead of getting rid of the Electoral College entirely, why don't we just change it a little? And I had 2 solutions. One, instead of it basically being winner-take-all for the state, so like if a candidate wins 51% of the state, they get the whole state, why don't we just base it on the districts? So, say in my state of Texas, we have 30 electoral votes, we have 36 districts. So why not just base it on the district votes? Well, part of the problem with that is, and there's 2 issues actually. One is, in a sense, it's still winner-take-all, it's just winner-take-all of a district vote, not the whole state. But second, there are a lot of urban areas that lean Democrat, and a lot of rural areas that lean Republican. So it would just basically be the same problem again. Basically, candidates would only fight over particular districts, not the whole state, though. So it's like, okay, a Republican's not going to go to these cities, Democrats not going to go to these rural areas, they'll only focus on specific areas in certain states. So it's still essentially not trying to focus, or candidates aren't campaigning everywhere equally, they're just focusing on certain areas. The other possible change to the Electoral College I had was, why not just proportion the electoral votes for all the candidates? So say, again, looking back at Texas, if a Republican won, say, a little over half the votes, instead of getting all 38 electoral votes, they got, say, 21. And part of the reason why I thought this was also a good compromise is that it would help third-party candidates and independent candidates maybe get a little bit of vote. For example, in 2016, neither Trump nor Clinton got a majority of the votes in Utah because there was a third-party candidate who took a large percentage of the votes. So having this system of proportioning votes, that third-party candidate would have gotten some electoral votes. But again, same problem, though, is that it's not winner-take-all, and some states are still seen as more valuable than others. So, over time, I have realized there really is no reason to keep the Electoral College. We really should just abolish it, because it's an outdated system that's flawed in principle, and was founded in part, or created in part, to give smaller states, which at the time, in the late 1700s, in the sense, give slave states more power, because slaves at the time also were not considered full citizens or even full human beings. So for every 5 slaves, only 3 were actually counted, like, say, in the census, which is what we base the Electoral College on, changing it every 10 years based on the census. So taking all those factors into account, the things that were already there from the beginning and things I've come to realize over time, we don't need to keep the Electoral College system. It's flawed in concept and flawed in principle. Now look, and I'll end the video with this. Realistically, do I think within maybe the next decade or so, politicians are all just going to say, yeah, let's get rid of the Electoral College, no problem whatsoever? No. It's going to be a long fight to actually get rid of the Electoral College and go to a winner-take-all system. Or not winner-take-all, one person, one vote, and every vote is seen as equal system. Like, it's going to be hard to get to that. Because, I mean, for 250 years, this has essentially been how we've done it. But, and also going back to something I said like halfway into this video, if the Electoral College is rigged, in a sense, to help Republican voters, because it gives smaller states and more rural states more power, by taking away votes from larger and more urban areas, then yeah, most Republicans aren't going to be in favor of abolishing the Electoral College. But if we truly believe we live in a fair and equal democracy, then keeping the Electoral College is just not the way to do it, because in and of itself does not make every vote equal. So yeah, that's the end of this video, and those are my opinions on why the Electoral College system is flawed, how my opinions on it have changed over time, and why I think we need to get rid of it. If you like this video, please hit the like button and leave a comment, and if you haven't already, subscribe, and hopefully I'll get another video up in a week or so and get back to you. Alright, thanks for watching, take care.